Hi everyone, selamat datang, good evening and welcome to 100% Manusia, 100% stay at home. Welcome to 100% Manusia Film Festival account Instagram, and then now we are going to have our 100% stay at home with Chew Tee Pao. He is a film archivist from the Asian Film Archive, and today we are going to talk about how film archive plays an important role in the film industry, especially in Indonesian film industry. As you guys probably haven't realized yet, that we are actually having a lot of Indonesian film that being archived, but not in our country. So now we are going to talk with Tee Pao. I see him already joining, so I'm going to invite him. While we are waiting for Tee Pao. Hi.
Hi, is this good?
Yeah, this is very clear and good.
Great, yeah.
Are
Good
you
to see
still?
you.
Good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, just at home and on Sunday. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I
But
hope everybody is fine too. Yeah.
yes, I think we are all good here. Thank you. How did you spend your Sunday actually today?
So I went, I just met some friends for lunch, and I just
Mm-hmm.
came back home and just chill and watch some TV and stuff. So just the regular Sunday, I guess. Yeah.
That sounds like a relaxing one.
Yeah, and now this, and this is like the first time I'm actually doing something like that.
Really?
It is, yeah. I've never gone like live on like Instagram ever. Like, so this is like the first time.
Oh, that's cool. We are honored actually to be your first
Yeah, I
time.
mean it's great. I'm glad we tried this out earlier. So
Yes, that's so
let's do.
cool. All right.
Yeah.
So yes, tonight I'm just going to say hi at everyone who joins us tonight. And in the edition of 100% Stay at Home, we are going to talk about Film Archive with Chew Tee Pao. Did I say your name correctly?
Yeah, Chew. It's actually
Chew.
CH.
Okay,
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Chew Tee Pao.
yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
Yes. And he is a film archivist that working for Asian Film Archive. And we call you Tee Pao, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, tea is fine as well. Just tea.
Right. Okay, just T. Okay. Great. So did I call you T?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So now, team, maybe you can actually explain or share to us what is actually a film archive and what the film archivists do.
So I've given like a lot of talks and sort of explanations of what um, film archiving is. So I always like to maybe
Mm-hmm.
start off with like a more professional kind of description. It's
Mm-hmm.
written down, by actually it's written down by a very renowned film
Mm-hmm.
archivist called Dr. Ray
Mm-hmm.
Edmondson. So he said film archiving or preservation itself refers to the practices and procedures necessary to ensure continued access with minimum loss of quality to the visual and audio quality and
Mm-hmm.
other essential attributes of the films. So these include surveillance, handling, storage environments, and methods. But of course, that's a very technical way of like putting it across. But just just
Yeah.
to make just to make it very simple for I think people who are
Right.
like just listening in right now to make it simple. And I think for
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us, we understand film in different in our own different ways. It could be a file on your computer or your hard drive, or
Yeah.
if people who are maybe a little bit older, we're familiar with maybe watching films on, say, VHS tapes, for example, or maybe filmmakers who have used film, and kept them on video cassette tapes, or
Mm.
even going back to the 35 sort of celluloid film, which a lot of people don't know, but it is really a format and a medium that the cinemas used to project, I think up till since the beginning of film, up till like I think the early 2000s, when we gone fully digital. So all of these materials that I've mentioned, even including the digital, they all rot. They all disintegrate in their own ways, due to various kind of reasons. It's, for example, climate,
Humidity, and then
humidity, temperature control, and even to poor handling as well, and as well and at times due to negligence as well. So they disintegrate or they disappear. So film preservation is really like a series of sort of procedures that we do to sort of ensure a film would at least last beyond our generation, at least. So different kinds of methods that we do, or certain practices that we put in place to ensure a film to ensure the longevity of a film. So that's essentially what film archiving is. So
okay. So what is it? Sorry. You go ahead. No.
So
Please.
you're asking me like, what do I do, as a
So
film
what is
yeah,
exactly?
so
Yes.
yeah, so a lot of people ask me this as well. So they always ask me, what do you do all day? Do you just watch films? So I wish.
What a wonderful job.
What a wonderful job. Yeah, exactly. So the title of Film Archive is basically, for me, it's my main job is to really oversee and sort of develop the collection within the archive itself. So it includes things like the selection of titles and the technical preservation work. I have to oversee the technical preservation work as well, and also to oversee the promotion of the collection. So I also sort of oversee some of the projects, like such as the restoration and digitization projects we have in place, and also well, part of my job. Some time of my part of my job, I do try and set aside to watch films, but that's definitely not what we do most of the time. And there's a lot more issues that we deal with on a daily basis with films, because there's so much issues, to do with legal, to do with copyright. So these are things that we actually do have to understand and try to negotiate almost on a daily basis, to understand the legality or the copyright issue of a work, and a lot of negotiations involved, especially with filmmakers, with distributors, to let them understand what we do. And of course, there's a lot of documentation involved as well. So it's not simply just a repository where we just collect films. There's a lot of processes over this. And then when a film comes to us, we often have to assess the condition, for example, and then it goes to another section where we actually have to sort of accession the item and sort of catalog the film. That's where the watching comes in, where we watch the film and we try and generate sort of keywords, synopsis and keywords, because eventually these are things that we would like to be able to put out to, say, for example, for public reference. And people are able to maybe do their research and look for certain titles that they might be looking to watch and preview. So these are the things behind the scenes work that we do to kind of bring it out. So it's not like we collect the film and then you can immediately watch it. There's a lot of work involved, especially if the film is not in, say, a digital format, for example, or not even in an accessible format. Say if it's on a film print, then we need to then assess it and decide on a number of measures that we want to take in order to make this film accessible eventually. So that's
basically,
really in a nutshell. Really.
In a nutshell, basically you are responsible in the life of the film itself.
I think so, yeah. And because
physically, and then also
and it's afterlife. I mean, basically, it's really it's
Yes.
afterlife. So, and
Yes.
because we are also a very small team as well, so I mean, the collections team itself, we're very small. So sometimes we do also have to take on some programming work, especially for our outreach programs, as well as some of our partner programs. So that's essentially it.
Wow. So it's basically you are like the Avengers of all the classics.
I
All the
mean,
films you are actually. You preserve
I
them
mean,
and you restore
well,
them.
thanks for putting it that way. Yeah.
There were actually a question from the audience just directly at the moment. Like, do you have to
Oh,
be a film student to be a film archivist, or you can just directly apply, or how
I
does
mean
it
that's
work?
a very interesting question because I think I've started work with the film archive in 2009.
Uh
So
huh.
I actually graduated with in cinema studies. So I actually didn't have any
Ah,
background in I actually didn't have any background in film preservation or film archiving at all. In fact,
right.
I think one of the main issue, at least I think in Southeast Asia or even the larger Asia region itself, there's a lack of sort of training. I think that's like proper kind of
Mm,
certified kind of training and full-fledged kind of education institution for at least for film archiving in general, I think.
yeah.
So basically, I was very fortunate. Like when I graduated, right after I managed to sort of get an internship
Mm-hmm.
with the archive, and that was when within the 3 months I kind of picked. I literally knew zero about what film is. Basically, I as you know as a film
Wow.
student, as a film student, all you know is to make films. You
Yes.
write scripts, you write
Yeah.
your scripts, and then you produce your films, and then you hopefully it gets screened, and then that's it. You never
Yeah, but you are not taught to preserve.
yeah, you're not told to preserve, and you think that's when
Yes.
a film ends, and I move on to my next film. But that's when I had this, realization during my 3 months of internship that I realized that there's so much more to a film's life. You people simply some filmmakers, I would say most, just shelve it
Mm,
aside and then they move on to the next project, which is totally understandable. It's always like on the back burner and things like that, and they move on and progress further. And only when I think something is lost, then they realize it. So going back to the question on whether do you actually need a film degree, uh, absolutely not. I mean, I think it's very useful, especially if you are passionate about the medium itself. So for me, I'm passionate about film. I like films. I used to enjoy making films as well, and then I found greater meaning in this job that I think it relates more to me
mm,
personally.
mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think there are also instances where some of my some of my predecessors, for instance, or even some of my colleagues, for instance, I mean, they're really very keen about the idea of preservation itself. So not
Yeah.
necessarily in terms of film, but the idea
Yes.
of preserving a cultural heritage. I think that's
Yeah.
more important. I think as long as you see the value in that, I think we had people from various disciplines, people
Yeah. I guess.
who are people dealing with art history, for instance, or people who
Yes.
are who graduated with a broadcast degree or
Yeah.
something, and they know. I think along the line, along over time, they come to realize, so
Mm-hmm.
I think in a way, I mean, the discipline kind of helped them understand better in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not
Mm-hmm.
essential. I don't feel it's essential as
Yeah.
long as you understand the value.
I
You know.
Yes. I believe so too. I think in all kind of jobs, it's the passion that count the most. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess by explaining that, actually, you have already answered why is film archiving play an important role. I think you have
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I always get asked, why do
Why we need
we
a film
why
archiving?
yeah
Yeah,
why do we need a film archive? So and
exactly. Yeah.
why do we actually need to preserve films at all? So
Yes. Yeah.
I always like to quote an example which I find it really personal, because when I first encountered this, it's it kind of hit me hard as well. Um, so the reason why film archives are important, and why we need to preserve our film, is exactly the
Mm,
same reason why we keep our family albums.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, so it's
I
what
was
I
just
mean.
about to
You
say
should
that.
ask the person back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why do you keep your family photos? Why do you keep your family albums of your past, about your history, your own history?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's essentially the reason why we do what we do. A country without film, I think, without film and without its heritage, its cinematic heritage documented, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a country without a memory. So I think there's nothing for future generations or even the current generation to be able to reflect on. So I think that's a very, I mean, that hit me really hard, when I heard it for the very first time, and so I always used it. And then people really get it at that time. We don't throw away our family photos, right? So
Yeah.
why are we not keeping our films properly?
I think,
Yeah.
wow, I think what you just said is actually hitting me hard as well. As you might as well know that Indonesia doesn't have a very good system in film archiving. So, and you just said to us out loud here, a country without a memory. I think that's what this country is doing right now, is try to erase all the memories. And I hope not. I hope some of those memories are still kept. But
Yeah.
with what you guys did at the Asian Film Archive, actually. So,
Yeah.
and then what are the challenges that you have faced so far doing this
um
job?
wow, I actually wrote down like
Maybe like the
so
number one, the biggest
yeah,
challenge
so
ever.
really, I mean, the greatest nemesis is like time. you know
So
there's
24 hours not enough?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, sometimes when something arrives to us, sometimes it's too late for us to salvage anything. Sometimes, at times, and sometimes we wish we had more time, to save a film. For
Mm,
instance, we had more time to decide what to do, and we had more time to decide whether we could, what other measures we can take to kind of salvage certain things. I mean, time is really not kind at all, and I think especially in this kind of climate in Southeast Asia, especially with the humidity and heat,
yeah.
we're all quite similar in that sense. It's really quite scary. Like, we've encountered films that are maybe, say, 20 years old, and they've already kind of developed, very very terrible symptoms, of like disintegration already, with like
Mm-hmm.
mold and all the chemical kind of disintegrating as well. The other biggest challenge I think that we're facing right now is,
Mm-hmm.
with the technology, and
Mm,
especially with born digital content, because I think when filmmakers make films in the past, say on tape or on film, on 35 millimeter, the celluloid film gauge, those, I think, if we are able to actually collect and then preserve them in, say, and put them in storage, climate controlled
mm-hmm.
storage, early
Mm-hmm.
enough, they can last for, like, I mean, it's evident, it's proven that that medium has lasted more than a century.
Mm.
Film itself is that format can last
The
for a
cellular.
century
Yeah.
if we store it properly. We seriously don't know about digital because it's been around for like maybe less than 20 years, I'd say. Like, it's
So
come out.
so you
So people are keeping
yeah.
them on hard drives, keeping them on the
Yeah.
computers.
So you're
And
Oh,
when it's
that's interesting. I
that's
mean,
that and
do
that's
yeah.
and you know, from the point of view of a consumer or even a filmmaker, that's like, oh my god, I'm so lucky to be born in this digital era because I can make films so cheaply and then I can keep them
Yes.
myself. But that's
Okay.
the opposite. And
Yes. So,
the digital material is actually far more at risk of being lost than the analog
right.
material. So when you think about tapes and the film material itself,
That is there's there physically, right? You mean?
physical materials, they last for a
Yeah.
century if kept properly.
Yeah.
You know, and even if they are at their worst, for example, uh, it's been kept in a humid and warm kind of
Mm-hmm.
on a in a storage kind of condition, and there is still some way that we may be able to sort of salvage it in some way, you know, through means of, say, digitization or
Mm-hmm.
even sometimes
Mm-hmm.
restoration when necessary. But
Okay. Yeah.
with digital, any loss is like that,
Yeah.
right?
I know what you mean. Yes, I know what you mean.
When you can't open a file, it's like that.
Yeah,
When you
because
when you lose an
yeah,
email, it's like that.
that's so true. Yeah. So
When
because
your file gets corrupted, you know, it's like that as well. You can't open it anymore. That's it.
yeah, but that is
At least
interesting. Like
that's
because I thought at
interesting.
the beginning, yeah, I thought at the beginning when you told when you explained about this that I thought the 35 would be like the hardest one to preserve. But
Oh
then now
no.
you gave us another perspective that
It
actually the
is,
digital one, yes,
and
right.
this is a really challenging situation where even the biggest film archive in the world, you know, the Library of Congress, and that we
Yes.
all face the same problem with digital. What do we do with digital? How do we move forward from here? So that's the
Okay.
issue. You know, we're doing the best we can, but
Mm-hmm.
I think essentially film archives are also finding it increasingly difficult to catch up with technology. You know, because
Mm-hmm.
they're constantly making all this filmmaking technology cheaper and cheaper and easier for people to access. But then if they don't think about preserving this content, then this content will be left behind and they are
Mm-hmm.
at a bigger risk. And as you know, I think hard drives, you know, what kind of lifespan do they have exactly?
Yeah, true.
You know,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
average of the average lifespan of a hard drive is between 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So
True. And
it's
yeah,
yeah,
that's quite a
exactly.
challenge.
It's quite a
Yeah.
challenge, and so
Yeah.
even for a film archive itself, the challenge of dealing with digital is as such that preserving a film in, say, the same film on analog. Say I have it on analog and I keep it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for a long time, fine and good. If I were to keep the same film in, say, the same film but in digital, it costs us about 10 times more
Oh wow.
just to preserve that same file
One.
or that
Yeah.
same element in a digital
Yeah.
form. And that's the challenge that I think archives are facing, because
Mm.
obviously it meant that with digital we've got to be really selective of what we can take in, and that's very
Now
sad. Yeah.
yeah, that comes to my next question actually, because you said that you have to be selective in your archiving, right? So is there any specific criteria for a film to be archived in the ASA? I'm asking this is actually in relation to the I've seen some of the Indonesian film on your collections as well. So
Yeah.
what are the criteria for this? Like uh, yeah, what are the criteria? Do you like, I don't know, the way I see it is like from all the Indonesian titles that you have in your collections, they all have a kind of what that I would like to say a red thread, like all talks about social movement. And then so is there any, yeah, what is
um
actually
so
your criteria?
we do have a very broad collection guidelines that's actually on our website. But that's a really broad kind of thing.
Mhm.
I mean, I mean, very often uh, I mean, I think in a way the collection kind of grew organically in a sense that we have like a small collection of Indonesian films, for example. So one of our I think one of our earliest donors of their films into the AFE is actually, Edwin.
Yeah.
And then there's also other filmmakers like Luki Kuswandi,
Kuswandi and
and
Nan
then we
Agnas, yeah.
also and we also have, say, we've just published we've just put on YouTube the first short film by Riri Riza as well, which is on 60 millimeter. So all of these actually, it kind of just came to us quite organically, in a way that we felt that they were very important works for us to consider at the very beginning. So of course we do consider a lot of factors, like in terms of historical, cultural, social value, social significance of the film, which is why we've been quite open with things. And I think a lot of times we also focus a lot on independent films as well. So because we know that a lot of these independent filmmakers may not have the means to be able to archive their own works, or to have a system in preserving their work. So I think that's our focus at the very beginning, to actually help these independent filmmakers find a home for their works. So I think as time goes, I think that really kind of form the collection that we have today.
So everyone can basically submit their film to
Yes,
be...
everyone can submit their film. So we do have submission application that people can submit. I mean, many times. I mean, I have to say this because we do knock on a lot of people's doors as well. We do try and talk to many filmmakers, and to encourage them to submit. But not everyone understands, why we do what we do. It's interesting, Sometimes they say, "Oh, I'll think about it
later when I grow old."
yeah, next year, or when my things start growing more, I'll contact you." It's I have to say, like 90% of the time it's like that.
Oh my
Like
God.
90%. So yes, I mean, let the word be out that we do welcome works to be submitted, and then of course there is really still a selection criteria based on some of the broad guidelines, in terms of it's a film's sort of significance to its time, and we don't just base just very simply on its merits. For example, sometimes we've even taken films that maybe have not even been screened in the country for different reasons, for various reasons. Whether it's unable to be screened, or and for different kinds of purposes. So we have this kind of thing. So we do welcome, and then we will assess sort of on a case by case basis.
Right. Okay. So, but I was just curious, actually, why you told me before, like the earliest collection of Indonesian film that you have will be from the independent filmmaker like Edwin, which is actually a friend of mine. And it's good actually to see his film and all other films of Indonesian film are stored properly and neatly in your place, well, in ASA basically. But why is actually the background why would you want to archive Indonesian film?
You mean, why would we want to archive Indonesian films?
Yes. Why?
I think at first when we were founded, we were really kind of in a way, our founder, he's an engineer by training, and he's not a filmmaker even, but I think he's also very passionate about film. And I think in the early years, I think before even the film archive was set up, he likes to attend film festivals and talk to filmmakers, and I think that's where he met people like Edwin
and Luki and
Riza and stuff.
Riza
So
and
I think
Nan,
I think that's when he understood that there is some kind of some lack of support, I think, in terms of preservation, and I think he wanted to help whatever he can. So at the time, there wasn't really so much of we just want to collect everything that's Asian. We don't, actually, we don't. So we actually just sort of encourage people, whose works are not archived in their country. We welcome them to deposit them with us at that time, at the very beginning. And that's when I think our first collections came about. But our sort of intention was never to duplicate any work that's already been done by another archive. So, and of course, but with every country, there's always works or by independent filmmakers or that would just fall within the cracks. Either the archive's not collecting it, or the filmmaker doesn't want to give it to the state archive, for example. So, and then we become that alternative, for them. So I think that was how the way our collection grew in that sense. It's like
I see.
a lot of films that doesn't quite fit in, say, in their home country, for instance. The system is not being collected in that sense, and then we kind of become the home for it in that sense. We were happy to do that.
Right, but does the filmmaker have to pay a rent for that home?
No, definitely not. So we actually don't charge. We don't charge for preservation work at all. So all we ask for, actually, for any kind of preservation film titles that are preserved with us, all we ask for is for it to be made available for public reference, and for us to be able to maybe show it in our programs and to promote it within,
so
for
you
education.
have your own regular program.
Yeah, we do have our regular programs as well.
Right.
So, which is why I think we don't charge the filmmaker for any kind of rental at all. So these are the costs that we absorb, and all we ask is for the film to be made available for reference, so that the public can research and study these films that are in our collection.
All right, that's so cool. Yes. So now we are going to answer some of the audience questions. What is the difference between the film archive and the restoration?
That's a really good question. So a lot of people tend to overlap, I think, the meaning of both. But I mean, for me, I mean, restoration is really a subset of preservation. So preservation is like, up here, and then restoration is a subset of it. In a way, restoration is necessary in order for us to continue to preserve the film. So sometimes the film can be quite deteriorated or damaged in a way that it needs to be, say, digitized. And then you need to clean up, you need to sort of restore it in a way that it will look as close as its original, right? How it was originally meant to be seen on screen. So that's one way of preserving the film. But even with the restored copy on digital, on the digital
you
format,
can still do the archive.
We will still have to archive that. The digital will be lost as well. But it enables us to continue the work. So restoration sometimes is necessary, but I think it's really a component of preservation work. So yeah.
So restoration is basically like a cousin of the film archive itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really the main function.
Like
yeah, it's not a main function.
It's in the same family.
It's the same family, but sometimes most film archives, I mean, they don't carry out the actual restoration work. I mean, it's still something that's very specialized. Most of the time, it still needs to be sort of outsourced. Maybe at different kinds of specialized restoration laboratories and things like that. So, yeah.
Okay, so
The
that
main function
actually,
is film
or
preservation. Yeah.
yes. So that also actually already answered the other question. Like, does
Oh.
being a film archivist mean you need to know about chemicals? No, this is good actually because you have also answered it like in the beginning when someone asked actually from the audience directly that do you have to be a film student to do that? No. And then so it means that being a film archive doesn't mean that you need to know about chemicals. We have already answered that one too. And there's also another one coming like directly. It's is it financially stable being an archivist?
Oh, that's such a tricky question. Actually,
Oh,
I mean, seriously, like, I mean, we're all in the same industry. We're all in the arts, like heritage. So, what do you think? You know, like,
exactly.
does
Who
it
will
make the
get rich
most?
working in the
Like,
film industry?
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's probably worse than working in the film industry.
All right.
I mean, it's not like we're not like a profit making place at all. I mean, archives are like you're just spending. You're not really you're not making
No,
like it's all for the
I
sake
know.
of heritage. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes, I
yeah,
understand.
it's a very large cost center actually in a way.
I mean, I understand how you feel because all of us at the 100% Manusia festival, we don't get
Yeah.
paid. So it's basically,
um, it's
so it's
voluntary. Yeah,
basically,
it's
except
actually
voluntarily
actually
works.
it's true. Actually, we do have to rely a lot on volunteers as well. So a lot of our preservation work, we couldn't even afford to hire full timers.
Ah,
Sometimes we really love to engage volunteers, and we actually have volunteers who have different skill sets
oh,
and
cool.
to help us. So, sometimes they are good at languages and they are able to help us translate things, for example.
Oh,
They're able to help
nice.
us they're able to help us with cataloging the film, so they get to watch the
Mm-hmm.
film in a sense, and then they
Okay.
they generate the kind of catalog
Okay.
information for us. So these are the things that we can't do ourselves. There's no way we can do it
Great.
ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, let us know actually, T, if you need a volunteer, and then
yeah,
probably
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, we can help it from here, and we can also promote when you want
Yep.
when you have this kind of open submissions, and then
Cool.
also yeah. So and then we have, is it rather difficult or fun to be an archivist? There's this question as well. Is it rather
Is it
difficult?
difficult?
Yeah, is it so?
I
Is it
think it's not it's I think it has both. I think it's difficult. It's yes and no. So
okay?
it's difficult in the sense that like I said, sometimes most of the time you have to knock on people's doors, and sometimes you get doors closed on you and they don't understand what you do. I mean, I'll talk to you 5 years later or when I have the time. So I think that's the kind of
Mm.
setback we face actually a lot of time, and yeah, short of that, saying and of course the things to face when when you encounter, say, a very difficult situation with a certain film, a film material, or that you can't salvage. I think that's a very heartbreaking thing, because if you know that that's the only copy left in the world, and if you can't
Mm.
see again, I think that's a very emotional thing for me, at least. It's very heartbreaking, especially if that's we try so hard, and then that all we can achieve is that. But it's better than nothing still. But I think what's fun and what's satisfying for me is that I think I also get quite emotional, affected in a way that when I see things that we restore, or and then we show it, and people get a reaction over it. Like maybe they remember the film, they remember watching the film when they were younger, or
Mm-hmm.
when they cry at the film. I think these are emotions that makes me feel really happy in a way. Like, oh wow, I think that's the power of, I think, film archives, in a way that we're able to sort of bring back, try our best to bring back that experience for people. I think to experience, and just watching them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
being able to appreciate that again, I think it's very encouraging. I mean,
Yeah.
I always
Okay.
enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And but any interesting or unforgettable experience relating to that actually?
Actually, I do want to point out a film that's very interesting. It's a film actually we restored 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You might be familiar. It's an Indonesian film by Garin Nugroho.
Mm-hmm. Which one?
Untuk Bidadari.
Oh,
Letter to an
Bidadari untuk
Angel. Yeah,
Bidadari. Yeah.
Untuk
Oh,
Bidadari. So
Surat untuk Bidadari. Yeah.
yeah, so we actually restored that film quite recently, actually, and
Ah.
that was from a print from the Cinematheque Indonesia. That was something
Oh,
that was
wow.
actually put at
Okay.
the Cinematheque. So it was something that
Yeah.
we wanted to work with him with, and then
Mm-hmm.
so that film was put with us, and we took a look at it. We thought that was the only copy left in the world,
Yes.
sort of thing. But we did some research and we realized that there was another copy with the Japan Foundation in
Oh,
Japan.
wow.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
think it was screened there and they screened.
Co-production also probably. Yeah.
It wasn't a co-production, but it was
It
more like
wasn't?
it was screened there, and then I think they made a copy with,
Ah.
and it's with Japanese subtitles. Yeah, it's
Wow.
interesting. So
Yeah.
what's more interesting about that film is that the copy that was with the Indonesian Cinematheque was that it's an
Mm-hmm.
incomplete version. It's a censored version because that film was made during the Suharto
No,
regime.
yes, it was in 1994. It was before the fall of the
Exactly. Yeah,
Suharto. Yes.
and so I think he made a conscious decision to censor the film to remove parts that would be kind of sensitive, I think, to the political kind of climate at that time. So he
Yeah.
removed those scenes, but the copy at the Japan Foundation is found complete. It is
So
the
it's
longer
director's cut.
version. Yes, exactly.
Oh,
So we
wow.
were able to sort of combine them together to present that restored version. And I think he was very pleased about it. But I think what strikes me most, I think through my conversation with Garin as well, is how this film is such an important example of a great historical and cultural document of a community. You know, the Sumbanese community, the Sumbanese culture, the Sumbanese
Mm-hmm.
language itself. I think it's even, I mean, he even said to me like, wow, he really missed listening to that dialect, you know, that language, and he missed because he can no longer see it now in Sumba, you know. So he basically told
Yeah,
me that
exactly.
it's become like a tourist kind of attraction.
Right.
But when he made the film, it was bare, and it's rawest. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and that was when he made the film. So there is no way you could replicate that experience besides
Yeah.
watching the film, you know. So I think it's quite, and then he was telling me it's kind of sad that it's also getting lost. I mean, at least
Mm-hmm.
in that part of Indonesia itself. So I think what
Mm-hmm.
he was very happy that, you know, in a way that he made the film, and then for us to be able to restore it later and to show
Yeah.
it again kind of illustrates that point
Right.
quite nicely. So I think that was
Yeah.
kind of memorable for me. Yeah,
So you get the material from the Japan Foundation
yeah,
for that one, right?
we had to get it, and
Yeah.
then sort of we digitized, I think, both, and then we sort of
Yeah.
combine and
Okay.
then make it
Well,
complete.
yeah. Well, I think what I want to add here is actually Indonesian filmmaker tends to have actually two kind of version for their films. As you know, we have also censorship, but our,
Mm,
I don't know whether it's like our censorship is worse than you guys, but it's still a censorship,
I
especially
see.
during those during those era, those Hartorain, and
Mm,
then I mean until now, some people also like I think also the last Riri Riza film
mm,
about the wife of our
yeah.
late president.
Mm,
It's actually sorry, the mother of our president. I think it has also two different versions. So probably, I would say if you want to archive Indonesian films, you should probably get it from other source the international one or the director's cut one. They made that to avoid, of course, censorship,
I
and to
see.
be
Yeah,
but at
because
least they
that's
get the
interesting too.
film. Yeah, at
Yeah,
least they get the
that's
film
interesting too.
publicly screened. Yes, yes. Oh, there's also another question. Are you supported by the government for doing the work at
Um,
the ASA?
so we are a subsidiary at this. I mean, when we
Mm-hmm.
first started, we were actually independent. We were completely independent. But at 2014, actually, we became a subsidiary of the National Library Board of Singapore. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why we decided to come under as a subsidiary there's a lot of synergy between us and working with the National Library, and I think that also allow us to be able to sort of expand and continue our work. Yeah,
Mm,
so I think that's it. Yeah, I mean we do get the sort of the operational support from the National Library Board itself, but on the other hand, it gives us a lot of leverage, I think, to also continue to raise funds for our other projects as well. So sometimes we do have special collections or even special projects that actually we do need to raise additional funds for, and we are still able to do that on our own. Besides, the sort of much, I guess, more stable operational funding. Yeah.
I see. Okay. And there's also other questions that not is there any difference in film archiving in Singapore and in Indonesia?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not familiar with how you guys might do it in Indonesia. I do know,
Well,
like, I mean, I have visited the archive, and
and it was
I think,
bad, right?
I can't. I mean, that was actually more than 10 years ago. I think that was more than 10 years ago when I first visited it. But I mean, I must say that it is still the oldest film archive. I think at least in Southeast Asia. It is the earliest archive that started, and I mean, it does have a lot of very important titles. It has collected many important films in the collection, and I think, I mean, I do hope, I think at least things improve. I hope, and
I mean,
then,
you can just say honestly, it's okay.
yeah, no, I do hope because I think they have collected really very significant titles, and I think it's important, and and I do hope things will improve. I think it's a very difficult situation. I think for all of us right now, especially with this, and we're all working mostly from home, and I think we are also. It's also a very uncertain time for us to consider. You know, how do we, do, how do we prioritize then? How do we prioritize what needs to be done, what needs to be in this kind of climate. So I think it's a very difficult time for all, I think, all archives and all kinds of yeah. But I think I guess the basic same principles apply. Like at least for us, we've sort of embarked on on archiving digital content. I think
Mm-hmm.
only since 2016. So we're still very, very early.
So
We're
like four
still
years ago.
yeah, 4 years ago on digital, we've started collecting digital. So imagine
Mm,
how much we've actually already missed. We've collected film reels and videotapes. So every
mm.
archive has their own difficulties, I say. Yeah, so it's same but different, like in a way we like to say, we face different kinds of issues altogether. Yeah.
I see. I was just curious actually because you said that this is like especially in the certain times like this. I was just wondering how is the film industry right now in Singapore? How is the cinema?
Oh,
Are they opening or
yes, I think
do you?
about two weeks ago, I think the government has allowed the cinemas to open already. So
Okay,
the face mask is still mandatory in all public
right.
places.
Yeah.
But I think the theater can only seat like a maximum of 50 people. But of course,
But
it must
50
have
people. Okay.
it must have the social distance measures in place. But maximum, no matter how large, is still 50 people. Um, yeah,
Okay.
with the social distancing, like I think 1 or 2 meters apart and things like that. I mean, they've just started, and I think people still miss going to the cinemas. Because I think when they started putting out films, I think people just really went back to the theaters, and I think the number one film was like Train to Busan or something. So
So you have already screened the sequel of the Train to Busan.
I mean, not us. I mean, the normal
Probably
cineplexes.
later.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
our theater. So we do have a theater. We did have a venue that we could do our regular program since I think
Mm-hmm.
last year May. So we've started, but that has to stop as well. But we are looking to resume our programs from end of this month. No, not end of this month. Yeah, actually in August, and then that's when our first programs will come out. Um,
Okay.
and
So it
yeah,
started to roll again
we
for with the
started to
film industry
roll.
there.
Yeah, exactly. So before that, I think a lot of the cineplexes or even us ourselves, we've been doing most of our programs online. So it's
Mm-hmm.
mostly like people can actually rent the films and they could view it for say 48 within 48-hour period. Yeah, so that's what we've been
Okay.
doing, and I think in the meantime, yeah, I mean, I guess it's really doing the best we can. I think in this
Mm-hmm.
situation, hopefully it gets better and for everyone, and yeah.
Yeah. And how about the film production? Do you know any film production in
Yes, so
Singapore
I
that
think
already
it's
start rolling?
I think they resume with rather strict guidelines in place. Like I think,
Mm.
for example, I think I think you can't have too many people on set. Like and
Right.
you've got to implement some distancing between crew members and things like that, and your talents and things like that. So I think they've put some guidelines up already in
Mm-hmm.
place. But I think
Okay.
filming has resumed. I think with this
Okay.
post production work has resumed as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they will do
Yeah.
this quite progressive. They'll do this gradually, in progressive manner. I think.
I see. And what is the next event for you guys? Like, I know I haven't seen any Singapore Film Festival
So
information yet, or probably.
that's usually in December. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
news, I mean the news might come out in say October or so.
Mm-hmm.
But for at least for us, I think so our next program that's coming up is actually titled For the Record. So it's actually a series of Asian documentaries
Ah,
uh, that's music that relates to music. So
okay.
these are actually very interesting documentaries that look at how music play a part in their own countries kind of cultural landscape.
Mm-hmm.
How the music kind of evolve in contemporary times as well. So I think that's a very interesting program, which is I think we've already started publicizing it. So that's the first
Okay.
program coming out, and then the one we did before online was
Mm-hmm.
the films from Central Asia, the contemporary films from Central Asia, because it's such a niche cinema. It's very rare, and that's why we decided it's something that I think generally people will be interested in as well. Yeah, so
Okay.
films from Kazakhstan, uh,
What?
Tajikistan, and so on.
Right. Okay. So the one that the series is the as a for the record, right? Was
The
that
one that's
one
coming out is called For the Record. Yeah.
for the record? Okay. And then the other one is actually a collection of what you guys have archived so far.
No, the other one is actually so we've been putting
More
out
of a
film.
feature film.
No, no, no. Actually, we started putting out. So since the start of the lockdown in Singapore, we've started putting out films every 2 months or so from the collection.
Right.
So the first film that we put out was a Singapore short film, very independent short film, experimental film that we put out. That was made in the 70s that we restored, I think, 2 years ago. That was a 16 millimeter short film, and then we put out a film called a Singapore film called Ring of Fury. That is Singapore's first and only martial arts film, kung fu film. So
Wow.
that was made in the 70s as well. It's a very interesting film. That was banned actually when it was first released. It was never screened in Singapore. Yeah, so that's very interesting. And then of course after that, so just earlier this month we put up Riri Riza's short film, his first
Mm-hmm.
film, when I think when he was
I
like
think that's
23.
16 millimeter, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Sonata Kampong Batam. Yeah, so that was he
Yeah.
made that when he was like 23 or something. So it's
Yes.
like when he
That's
was
so
in
cute.
school. Yeah, which is a very fascinating film
Very
as
cute.
well, I think.
Yes, and very
Yeah,
idealistic as well.
yeah. So it's quite a delight to be able to work on that, because
Yeah.
we did help to digitize that film, in a way.
Right.
And then, yeah, I mean, just look out on our YouTube channel as well. We've been putting out films from the collection. So
Okay.
from my end, I've been trying to identify some of these interesting works from the collection, and quite significant works, I would say.
Great. Yes. I think we are running out of time. And we
Okay,
have covered
that's on the dot.
everything actually, but that's
Yeah,
good.
that's good. Yeah.
No, but good. So we have covered all of the points and then also answer all of the audience questions.
Yep.
And I mean, like what you said before, that's I think the one that I quote the most is actually A Country Without a Memory. That's
Yeah.
really hit us, especially us as Indonesian, because
Yeah. I
to be
think
honest with you, we
with
don't have that kind of, we don't
mm,
really prioritize in the importance of the film archiving, I would
yeah.
say. So that's quite sad. Like for example, in the festival, we try to also do a kind of retrospective, but it's so hard to find the material.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I see.
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah,
so
I mean, on our end, we're still a relatively young archive as well. So, I mean, we try and do the best we can. So,
mhm.
I mean, yeah, I mean, do feel free to sort of, share the word, spread the word
Yeah,
at,
well, I mean, we would love to. We
if,
would love to. Yes,
yeah,
maybe we can
and
collaborate for the
whatever.
festival.
Yeah,
Yes.
so whatever we can help with, we'll try our best. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, T. That's very insightful. Actually, it's been
Thanks
a
for,
very nice Sunday there.
yeah. Okay, gotta work
Oh,
tomorrow.
yeah. Oh my God, it's Monday. Right.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Monday. So it was
Yeah.
very nice.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I mean, it's fun. It's fun talking.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun talking. Thank you so much, T,
Thank
and
you so
thank you actually
much.
for helping Indonesian film industry by archiving our films.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye bye.
You too, and have a good start of Monday. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
All right, that was our conversation at 100% Stay at Home with Chew Tee Pao, T from the Asian Film Archive. He's a film archivist. He's been doing his job for like 10 years, and I really admire actually his patience. Uh, Patient and patient basically in doing film archiving as a work. And for you guys, as if you want to actually learn about film archiving, just directly go to their website, asianfilmarchive.org. Just last December I saw that they have like a kind of job opportunity, like a volunteer. So maybe after this pandemic over, you can volunteer to help them at the Asian Film Archive, because and then you can bring the knowledge back to Indonesia, because you know what, we don't have a good film archivist in Indonesia. We do, but very rare. One of them is actually Lisa Bona. Thank you for introducing us basically to Asian Film Archives and Chew Tee Pao. And next Sunday, we will have a special talk in a 100% Stay at Home with international guests as well. And starting actually today, that we are going to do all the session in English. So follow us, and if you have feel free, if you have other topics that you want to discuss, just let us know, and we'll try to provide that. And have a good relaxing Sunday, and have a good start on Monday. See you guys. Bye bye.